in the universe in every way. He is, as the scripture implies, he's omnipotent, omniscient, or he is omnipresent. He has all power, power free, power to save, power to heal, power to deliver, power to shake, to move. He has all power. God has the ability, this extraordinary that that no one has, the ability to make something out of nothing. Men are becoming getting besides themselves, and they're saying, soon they're going to be able to make life. Well, if they're going to make man, they need to get their own material to start with. Because everything you see is made by God. And so whether, God started with, but he made something beautiful. You don't have to look too far to come to that conclusion. You can just look at yourself and recognize that God took nothing and made something beautiful. In the passage before us, in Genesis chapter 1, Moses, the writer, he's seeking to share with us of the account of creation. But it's very interesting that Moses does not seek to enter into an argument or a theological or philosophical discussion about the existence of God. Nor does he seek to engage us about the origin of God. He begins with the declaration and the affirmation and the confidence that God exists. And so he does not begin to seek to explain God's existence or to explain the origin of God. He begins with affirming the fact that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And rightly so, because God is the creator of all things and the sustainer of all things, it is rightly so that the first name that we see in the Bible is God. And so he says, in the beginning, God. The entire scripture, however, is concerned with the workings of God, the world to fulfill his purpose. From the beginning of time, God was actively involved in this world, and he still is today. He's still actively involved in the world. Even though it might not seem as though God is at work in your life, in your situations, even though it may seem as though evil is going to triumph in our world, and we see all kind of hideous activities in our world, God is still in control. God is still in charge. And God is still at work in his world, so much so that he can say all the negative stuff that you experience in your life, he is going to work them together for good. If you look good enough, you see him working out stuff in your life. If you just look at your past and you see how all the dots connect, how God was in it after all. The time you spend crying and sleepless nights and worrying and wandering, and you look over your life, you find that God, I should have rest then, because when I look at it now, I recognize that you was right there. Always at work in his world. Absolutely nothing happens without his knowledge or without his consent or permission. Because there's only two wills. There is God's perfect will. There's God's permissive will. Right? That which happened because God is going to happen, and that which God permit because of man's own free will. And so there's God's permissive will and there's God's perfect will, but nothing happens except God allows us. So even when we do what we want to do, we can only do what God permits or allows us to be done.